What's going on, everybody? And I hope you're enjoying your Monday morning so far. This is MYG Jeffrey T85 here. And while the football season is concluded, only a couple of days away from your first official full workout for spring training and Major League Baseball for the New York Mets. Now, obviously, first I'm going to talk about the news that just broke on Boomer and Carton this morning about Keith Hernandez, one of the guys that's been part of the SNY booth with Gary Cohen and Ron Darling for years, is officially back with the team. That is beautiful to hear that both Ronnie, Keith, and Gary will be together for the New York Mets on the SNY broadcast going forward again. I love it. Arguably the best trio of announcers in baseball, you having those three guys back. I love it. And congratulations to the Mets and Stevie Cohen for finding a way to get Keith Hernandez back locked up and back part of the SNY booth. Had to throw that out there first because I think it's beautiful news. Now, I'm going to be going over probably a 4-part series for the New York Mets. Pretty much checking out the positional groups for the New York Mets. Every single one of them in terms of the depth chart and positional players that are going to be looking for spots going into this Major League Baseball season. Today, I'm going to start with the outfield. Then tomorrow, I'm going to go to the infield. That's including catcher. Wednesday, I'm going to be going into the starting pitchers. And Thursday, I'll be talking about the bullpen. Now, at that point, yes, the training camp and spring training will already been beginning. But either way, I'm going to preview those positional groups. Today, obviously, I'm starting with the outfield. So, the New York Mets outfield today, they are right now expected to have, in terms of their starting outfield, you have Mark Canha, who is going to be starting out for the New York Mets in left field. That's projected right now. You have Brandon Nimmo that's going to be starting out for the New York Mets at center field after he got his big deal this offseason. And you have Starling Marte, who is going to be starting out in right field for the New York Mets. Those are the guys we already know. Obviously, because of what the team did last year, those are your projected starters right now for the New York Mets going into this season. And then right now, your backups at the moment are Tommy Pham, who they signed in free agency this past offseason, as well as Abraham Almonte, who's been a key player coming off the bench. He's going to be probably their 5th outfielder, a defensive replacement for the team. Now, I'm going to go over each person and how they did in terms of their season overall. So, first off, I'm going to start out with Mark Canha and how Mark Canha did in 2022. Canha was one of those guys that was a mixed bag overall for the New York Mets in terms of his play. I thought Canha, for the most part in the beginning of the season in 2022, he struggled with the bat. He was a guy that was having a lot of difficulty getting to a consistent swing. Overall, swinging and missing way too much. He was struggling at the plate. Wasn't really getting a lot of meaningful hits for this baseball team. But he really started to pick it up towards the end of the season. And in fact, Canha, he actually played a lot of games. He only missed 22 games during the regular season due to either having days off or a couple of minor injuries he was dealing with. But either way, Mark Canha, he played overall in 140 games. He had overall 462 at-bats. He scored 71 runs, 123 hits with 24 doubles. He didn't have a triple, though. He had 13 home runs with 61 RBIs. He had 3 stolen bases. One of them was caught stealing. He had 48 walks. He had 97 strikeouts. His batting average overall was a decent 266. Could have been better, but it was not too horrific. An on-base percentage of 367, a slugging percentage of 403, and an OPS of 770. Not terrible. The slugging percentage, in my opinion, was a little low. Batting average was a little low. OPS, not bad. But I think for Canha, it was a tale of two cities, a tale of two halves. I thought he played much better in the second half. He really started to get his swing going in the second half for the New York Mets. And that made a big difference for the team because of how well he was playing overall. And he's going to be going into this year really looking to try to see if he could capitalize on what he did in the second half of his 2022. He's playing also on the last year of his deal. Remember, Canha signed a contract with the New York Mets last offseason. So he's pretty much going to be playing into the last year of his deal. He signed a 2-year, $26,500,000 contract. So he's playing in the second year of his deal, and depending on how he plays, he's going to be making $13,250,000 this year. Depending on how Canha plays, this might determine what the Mets are going to do with him going into next year. So that's Canha. Now I'm going to get to Starling Marte. And there's a lot of positives I could say about Starling Marte. I thought his addition to the team was fantastic. This guy was a table setter for the team going into the 2022 season. To me, Starling Marte was a monster table setter for this team. To me, he also was a guy that was able to get on base. Since he signed his 4-year, $78 million deal with the New York Mets last offseason. So he's locked into a deal for at least 2 more years. And he's going to be earning at least $19,500,000 overall in the signing bonus for the New York Mets. He's going to have a base salary of $19,500,000 with a bonus of $2,500,000, and he will carry a total salary in that deal of about $20,750,000 per season. And like I said, Marte was a monster piece to this team as a leadoff hitter for the Mets, as a number 2 hitter. I'm sorry, Brandon Nimmo is the leadoff hitter. But Starling Marte was every bit as important to the New York Mets this past season. And what really hurt the New York Mets towards the end of the season was Starling Marte fracturing his finger towards the end of the season. When he fractured his finger and he was out of the lineup, the New York Mets struggled to try to get big people on base and try to get people to round around the bases and get key hits at the top of the lineup because Marte was one of those spray hitters. In fact, he played in 118 games. He did deal with a couple of injuries here or there. Obviously, the fractured finger towards the end really hurt the team, where he missed at least a few weeks because of it. He played in 118 games, where he had 466 at-bats, 76 runs scored, 136 hits overall with 24 doubles, 5 triples. 5 triples, that's a lot for a second hitter. He had 16 home runs and 63 RBIs, 18 stolen bases with 9 caught stealing. He walked 26 times. He did strike out 97 times, so he struck out a little bit higher than I wanted. He had a .292 batting average, which is very good for a number 2 hitter. .347 on-base percentage, I like it. A .468 slugging percentage and a .814 on-base percentage, or an OPS. That's very good. Like I said, it was a monster loss when we lost Starling Marte due to injury. That's one guy that we have to hope can stay healthy for this team going into this year. We do. Because Starling Marte is a key piece to the top of this lineup. So hopefully Marte can be able to come back and he can stay healthy with the team going into 2023 and have a monster bounce back year. That's the hope. So now I'm going to get to the key guy for this team in the outfield. And that, of course, is the homegrown player, Brandon Nimmo. It all starts with Brandon Nimmo. He's the leadoff guy. He's the energy guy. He actually had a very good year. For a guy that remained healthy, he was one of the best hitters on the team overall. Getting on base, spraying the ball all around the field, stolen bases, played good center field. And he was rewarded this past offseason with an 8-year, $162 million deal. Can you say overpay? Of course. But obviously the New York Mets were willing to overpay for a guy that they feel they could not let go because of how important he is to the baseball team. That's the reason why they gave Brandon Nimmo the type of deal that they gave him. Because they knew his value and how valuable he is to this organization since he was drafted to the team all the way back in the mid-2010s. They knew how important Brandon Nimmo was. And it's really good to see Nimmo be able to come back with his team and pretty much going to be a lifelong Met. And Nimmo had a very good season last year. In fact, last year he played the most games of his entire career. Before this season, Nimmo pretty much struggled to even hit 100 games played. The only other time he had about 100 plus games played was back in 2018 with the New York Mets. Otherwise that, he's played in under 100 games. This year, 151 Brandon Nimmo played in. He had 580 at-bats with 102 runs scored. Keep in mind of that. 159 hits, almost 160 hits this past season. 30 doubles, 7 triples for Brandon Nimmo. 16 home runs, 64 RBIs from your leadoff hitter, which is very impressive. He had 3 stolen bases. I think that could even go up. Two of them where he was caught stealing. He had 71 walks. He did strike out over 116 times. That needs to improve, but he walked 71 times. He knew how to get on base. And this is the kicker right here for Brandon Nimmo. He had a 274 batting average. He had a 367 on-base percentage. A 433 slugging percentage. That's low for him, but he's not really a home run hitter. And an 800 OPS. Nobody understands how important a guy like Brandon Nimmo is to this baseball team because of how he can get on base and really control this team in terms of the table setter. You always in Major League Baseball want to have a great table setter on the team. And that's exactly what Brandon Nimmo does. He sets the table for the rest of the lineup to get on base, steal bases, spray the ball around the field, occasionally hit some home runs, and you get on base for Marte, for Lindor, for Alonso, for McNeil. You get on base for all these guys, and that's what really helps out. And now to finish it off, I'm going to talk about the depth guys on this team. First off, I'm going to start with Tommy Pham, whom the New York Mets signed to a contract this offseason. Tommy Pham was signed by the New York Mets this offseason to a 1-year, $6 million deal to be the 4th outfielder for this team. Depending on how Canha plays, because I think if there's any chance Tommy Pham might earn himself a starting position is depending on how Canha plays. But either way, Tommy Pham is a veteran player that now you're adding to this team. Obviously up there in age, 34 years old. The other one of the guys, Marte's about 34 as well. Canha's about 32. And Nimmo is just hitting 30. So you have a bunch of older outfielders now on this team. But what all that a guy like Tommy Pham does is he's a veteran player that steps up for the team. That could be able to come in, play decent defense, and he could hit the ball very well. In fact, last year, with the Boston Red Sox and the Cincinnati Reds, overall, Tommy Pham put together a very solid year. Overall. In fact, last year, with the Red Sox and the Reds, he played in about 144 games total. He had about 554 at-bats. He scored about 89 runs total. That's not bad. Just combining them together. He had overall 131 hits. Overall last season. 131 hits. This guy knows how to get on base. He had 23 doubles, 1 triple he had in Cincinnati. He had 17 home runs between both teams. He had about 63 RBIs, 8 stolen bases between both. He had more stolen bases with Cincinnati than he did with Boston. He had 3 times he was caught stealing. He walked about He walked about 56 times. He struck out, though, a lot. He struck out 167 times. That's a problem. That's a problem when you're striking out that much. He had a batting average. I'd probably say a batting average of about 236. He batted 238 back in 2000, and back with Cincinnati, and 234 at Boston. So he's obviously not a guy that's going to hit very well. His on-base percentage, I'd probably say, was hovering around 305, 310. He had a slugging percentage of 374. That didn't change. And he had an OPS of about 680. So they're pedestrian numbers, but those are fourth outfield numbers for a guy like Tommy Pham. It's going to be your fourth outfielder. So that's exactly what you're looking for Tommy Pham to do. And now, to finish it off, I'm going to go with Abraham Almonte. Abraham Almonte is the depth piece on this team. Now, in terms of Abraham Almonte, he's the fifth outfielder on the New York Mets. He's pretty much, right now, he's on a 1-year, $555,000 deal that he signed with the New York Mets as a free agent. He's a depth player right now out of the Dominican Republic. He's also 30-plus years old. And last year, Abraham Almonte with the Boston Red Sox. He played overall in 15 games. He had 35 at-bats, 7 runs scored. He had 9 hits, 2 doubles, no triples. He had 1 home run and 2 RBIs, 1 stolen base, 1 walk. He had 12 strikeouts, 257 batting average with a 297 on-base percentage, 400 slugging percentage, and 697 on-base OPS. You're not expecting much from this guy. But either way, he's your fifth outfielder right now on the depth chart as we speak. Doesn't mean things can't change. Right now on the depth chart, your outfield construction is Brandon Nimmo, Mark Canha, Starling, Marte. They're your 3 starting outfielders. And then you have Tommy Pham as your 4th outfielder and Abraham Almonte as your 5th guy. You obviously can have Mark Vientos, who's coming up from AAA, and you could even have somebody like Brett Beatty, who's had experience playing outfield, be able to go there. But I think Beatty is going to be starting in the infield. I'll get to that tomorrow. But right now, that is your starting and your reserve outfielder for the New York Mets for spring training and for the season. You guys let me know in the comment section if you feel comfortable with that collective group. What you think about the New York Mets outfield going into the season. If you like it, dislike it, who's the breakout player in that outfield, and who that was not mentioned as a young player could eventually make their impact for the New York Mets going into the season. Thank you very much, everybody. Turn on the bell for notifications as well for the next video or short dropping on the channel for the New York Mets, and hit that like button if you haven't already. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your Monday morning. Take it easy and let's go, New York Mets. As always, all you got to do is believe in those boys from Queens.